All right, so we are going to learn how to work in the round. So you can make the Bulky Beanie. I have that pattern up on Ravelry. This is Wool and the Gang's Crazy Sexy Wool. It's one of my favorite super bulky yarns. And this is a 15 millimeter hook. I always tell people to be looking for that 15 millimeter. Otherwise, once it gets bigger in the millimeters, the letter size isn't quite as accurate. So I'll have sometimes students show up to class with a hook that's either too big or too small. So that 15 millimeters is going to be more accurate for you. So we're going to start out with our slip knot. And I like to just make mine on my hook. So I just take the hook and I wrap it like this with the tail behind. And I cross it over, and I'm going to scoop and grab this side right here. I'm going to go over that cross and grab it and pull it through. I showed a couple different ways to make a slip knot on one of my first videos with the mustard colored yarn if you want to look at that. So this is my preferred way to work in the round. I know there's a few different ways to work in the round, and you can just use what method you like, but I'm just going to teach you this way, and this is what I do in my classes. I find the magic circle a little bit cumbersome for first-time crocheters, and I think this is a little easier. So we're just going to start off with making 2 chains. So this loop on our hook doesn't count as anything. This is our first chain, and there's our second chain. Here's our slip knot, and there's the tail down here. Here's the yarn we're working from, okay? So you've kind of got all this in your hands, and it feels a little bit like there's a lot going on if this is your first time doing it. But if you can kind of just look at what you've got on your hook and see this loop, there's that first chain, and there's the second chain from your hook, which I know is confusing. That's the first chain we made. There's a second chain we made, but we always count away from our hook when we're counting. So that loop doesn't count. First chain, second chain. And if you get lost, it's always find your tail, feel for that slip knot, and that hole right above your slip knot is that first chain that we want to work in, okay? So we're going to make our single crochet in that first chain right there, okay? So now we've got 1 single crochet in that spot. Don't let it turn around on you or get confused where you're supposed to work. Look for that tail, find your slip knot, and find the hole and make another single crochet. So it's into the chain, wrap around, through the chain. You've got 2 loops on your hook. Wrap around and through both. And again, on one of those first videos, I go through the single crochet many times and very slow. So if you want to look at that for a review, if you need to figure out the single crochet, because we're just going to kind of show you how to work in the round. So now we've got 1, 2, and then we're going to do another one here. And sometimes I show my beginners this. I don't always, because I feel like it gets to be a little much, but I'll take that tail and I'll tuck it up like this on the back side. So this next single crochet, I'm going to work around the tail, and so now it's stuck in there, and we can tighten that hole later. But as you're working, you can pull on that hole and make it bigger, okay? You want to keep working in that same exact hole. And you'll see you don't have to do much as you work them. They kind of just go into a circle all on their own. Just going to get a couple more made in here, okay? So this doesn't count here. That's that chain that we skipped, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 single crochets in here. And we want 8 to start. And there's 8. We're going to be working our beanie in a circle or a spiral, and we're not going to connect our rounds as we go, because mostly I don't like the seam in the work. I like it all to look the same. But also for beginners, once you get past this part, you're going to just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it's pretty simple. So on each stitch, there's a back loop and a front loop, and we're just going to be working in this back loop, okay? So single crochet in this back loop. But to make a beanie, we need more than 8 to go around. Otherwise, our hat would be this small. It would be way too little. we actually need 28 around, okay? So I'll explain what more of that means in a second, but what we need to do is we need to add 2 stitches in each stitch. So we just worked one there, we're gonna work another one in that same spot. So now there's 1 single crochet in this hole, there's 2. Move on to the next stitch, it's way over here. Do 1 single crochet and then 2. I know I did that quick, but I just want to show you guys what it looks like. There's 1 and there's 2. Each part of the single crochet is almost like 2 little toes that come out, okay? There's 1, 2, that's 1 single crochet, and then there's 1 here. It almost looks like the pi sign. There's 2 lines going down and there's a cross over the top, okay? So each stitch around, you're going to do 2 single crochets. Okay, and go to the next one and do 1, and then 2, just like that. And as we're doing this, we're adding 1 extra stitch to each stitch every time. So if we had 8, now we're going to have 16 once we get around. And then if we kept going, we'd end up with 32, but we just want 28. So what I like to tell my students is keep working 2 in each stitch around until your circle's about this big, okay? And then we can count and see if we're close to it, if we need to take some out or if we need to add more to our circle. So I think we're getting close, but I'll show you guys how to count now. So we've gone around once and twice, okay? So I'm guessing I should have 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That was pretty close. Got 1 extra in there. So we still need 28. So we're going to keep working around the circle, adding 2 stitches to each stitch. There's 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1, 2. I'm going to do some of this a little quicker because you guys can just work along or fast forward through, but it doesn't take that long to get around. And I love this yarn, but it does get a little bit twisted. So sorry, having to pull the yarn behind me here and getting my work really close to the camera. So once we get around again, and it's kind of easy to tell where you started because these loops, because we're working in the back loop, you can see that they're in a spiral. Can you kind of see how that goes around like that? And so the beginning of the spiral is actually right there. And so on your 3rd time around, you're not going to have to go all the way. So we could probably count and see where we're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So we need, that would be 25. 2 in here would be 26. 2 in here would be 27. And then 2 more would be 28. Of course, all of this depends on your gauge, but if it's your first time making something like this, I would just do 28 and make the hat and see what you need to adjust. Because the hook and the yarn are so big, usually a pattern would say adjust your hook size, go up or down. But for this, you would need to adjust how many stitches you have around. But once you know that, if you know, oh, I crochet really tight or really loose, you would just keep adding 2 or not add as many. If your gauge is looser than mine, you might need fewer than 28. Does that make sense? So then you would stop back here adding if you needed fewer. But you count around the circle. So it's not total stitches in here. It's outside of the circle. You need 28, okay? Once you get here, you stop adding 2 in each one and you switch to just doing 1 in each stitch. If you did the back loop beginner cowl, that's the first couple of videos with the mustard colored yarn, you're just adding 1 stitch in each stitch. So you're just doing what you would normally do. You're just adding 1 stitch to each spot as you go around. And as you do that, I tell my students, they don't believe me, but it's going to expand just a little bit, and then it's going to curve down, and it's going to turn into a hat. You don't even have to do anything, okay? So I'll finish this up and come back with a video showing how to close this hole, how to finish off the end as we go once we get this turned down. You guys don't have to watch me make the whole thing.